If I had a penny each time I was hyperfixated on a blue indie horror game main character, I'd have 2 pennies. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? The homeowner, who I believe is one of the most interesting characters in the roster of No, I'm Not a Human. Am I biased? Absolutely. This video is literally just about my biases about the protagonist slash homeowner. I'm used to calling him the protagonist, so let's get that straight. I love him and I'm upset nobody talks about him, so I shall do the honors. Before we start though, I would like to ask if you could please subscribe and like this video, or maybe comment your opinion on anything that I say. It helps a ton and it motivates me to make these videos. I'm also sorry that I am using my Undertale and Deltarune sprites instead of making new ones, because my tablet, graphic tablet, is actually broken, so I can't draw. So I will definitely remake this video once it works again, but yes. Also, this video is featuring my friend. His name is Isaac, or Jan, cat on basically any social media. Now that we got this out of the way, thank you so much, and let's get back. The history of the protagonist is not very known. We know he doesn't have the best relationship with his father most likely abusing him. We don't know anything about his mother, he only really addresses her when talking about parents. She was likely blind to this abuse. He had a wife, and he had a cat. We don't know what happened to both of them, sadly. His father was a priest, therefore that's why I believe he isn't so nice to the religious characters. We'll talk about that in the relationship section though. And also why him being crucified as Jesus, a Christian being, and being the chosen and the prophet makes it just so much more impactful. We know his parents died or just gone generally, and left him the house that he most likely grew up in. And I think that's all we know for history. Please tell me if I missed anything in the comments. Anyways, let's get to the other section. Homeowner is very much an introvert. I wouldn't say socially anxious, as he seems to be talkative but very dry. Like he's not really used to talking to others, not used to talk about himself. However, he seems to be empathetic. He realizes when people are upset, but he can also tell you when you're saying dumb shit out loud. He seems to be a good listener, by how much the other characters yap and he just says a few words, asks a question, then listens again. He seems to be a blind follower, whether that is because of his parents or his personality just being an easily manipulated person. He does mostly what people tell him to do, with not much compliance. From what we see, he believes basically everything they say on TV. He checks himself and swears when his teeth are white.
Shit. White. Smokers would kill for these.
Only after FEMA wrongs him multiple times, he seems to be resistant towards any public information, even shutting his TV off through the day. His trustful personality is shown through the people that he lets in. Either he genuinely believes that the people he lets in won't do him no wrong, or just lets the people in to not cause conflict, and both can be signs of trauma from the abuse. He also seems to be comforted by his trauma. He talks about not wanting the house, constantly, and still he seems to can't leave. His financial situation can be the cause of this, of course, or it can be his traumatic memories making him unable to leave. A sense of comfort and the fear of the unknown, which is common in abuse victims. He also seems to be suicidal, as many endings and some dialogue seem to point out to his suicidal thoughts. So we have a traumatized, avoidant, lonely man who doesn't seem to remember what positivity is, and even gets angry when people are too happy. Damn, your life was tough, Protag, but I'm sure nothing else goes wrong. Like, I don't know, maybe the whole world burning? Yeah, I think that's all for the personality in a nutshell. This is kinda similar to the history part. We will go over some characters and see what kind of relationship he has with them. But of course not all, you know. He seems to be friendly with his neighbor. It's like he only talks to him regularly, if not only talking to him. He knows his family, and for some reason doesn't really know he has a brother until he literally shows up at his door. He's nice to the neighbor's daughter, more so when she's at his doorstep crying. We don't know anything about the neighbor's wife, so we don't know how the Protag feels about her. We talked about most of this in the history. He hates his father, and because of him, he doesn't want to be seen as a parental figure and doesn't want kids. Every time he thinks about his father, he always switches to a more aggressive tone.
I don't get why it's not in the corner. I thought that was the rule. Then again, my dad never gave a damn about the rules.
The first character we see after our neighbor. When he talks to the man, he seems to be interested, and seems to quite trust him. I think his feelings towards most people he lets in are just neutral, but maybe for the tall man it's more on the positive side. We know how it all ends. She's a visitor from the start. Still, Protag talks to her, asks her about her story. He seems to care, to have at least someone remember her stories before her unfortunate demise. He does shoot, of course. Most players felt compassion for her and felt bad for killing her. And I think the character we played as is supposed to feel the same, or at least similar. Even if always confused by the egghead's ramblings, he seems to trust him. He follows up with letting the cat lady in, even if literally everyone knows she's a visitor, then even he does. When he says, "I shouldn't have trusted you," when meeting the egghead after letting the cat lady in, he still goes to the basement and digs just like the egghead told him to do. The prophet seems to evoke more of a comfortable and positive feeling, even shown through his theme. It's calming and not happy, but not as melancholic as what normally plays. He hates this man. This is one of the only times he actually fights back. Another is with the FEMA officers.
I have a gun. I am not letting you in. I don't care.
He's obviously uncomfortable and distrustful to the pale man. He only begins to converse normally when he wants to ask questions. This is very similar to the pale man. He doesn't like her, but I don't think it's hate, really, but very strong dislike. When you do keep her alive and talk to her, he does seem to kind of care. He isn't very fond of her, of course, but he also seems to want to listen, or listens just to get over her stories. He feels more negatively neutral about her. Yes, it's a her, I just found out. Even at the door, he seems to be more aggressive, most likely from his distrust of religion because of his priest father. I think we know. He feels comfortable with her, most likely not sleeping with her, but letting her stay in his bed. There is some physical touch references, but we can only speculate. However, since her dialogue is so openly sexual since the beginning, there's no way to know for sure. Even if he's not letting her in, she still asks him about what's bothering him, and he answers truthfully. He seems to trust this man. In the cutscene for an ending with this man, he leads you and grabs your arm. And honestly, to me it seems that he's reminded the Protag of his father. Son, boy, and the way the Protag is letting himself be just led, like a small child. Maybe this is what he wanted his father to be. This is way more reliant of what ending you're going for. If you're on a normal route though, the protagonist seems to be neutral at first, but becoming more hateful towards the organization as the playthrough goes on. We will now talk about some endings and how I think it impacts the protagonist. When you're going to the basement on the last day with no visitors, FEMA has already taken over the government. The ending cutscene ends with the FEMA telling everyone over the radio that everything is now under control. However, the protagonist still isn't happy about this. I love how this ending is most likely an allegory for how communism took over the Eastern Europe. I live in a country too affected by this, and I saw the parallels immediately. You go to the basement with visitors in your house until they tear you open. The protagonist sees a house as he drifts from life. This house is important. The Protag gets a job as a FEMA officer, at first thinking that FEMA is a pure organization, as how you get this ending is calling the FEMA hotline every day and giving out as many FEMA notices as you can. The monologue starts confused but trustful. The ending image shows how it's not innocent at all. Protagonist looks terrified, as his eyes become engulfed in flames, and his eyes are gone. Most likely referring to becoming a prototype. His eyes are now covered by his mask. He's not himself anymore. He's just a female officer. His originality is gone.
There's no telling when they'll let you go home. How dangerous is this job anyway? It's not even clear what the work will be. You're not even sure what the job involves. Escorting people to quarantine jobs? And then what? You don't know what's become of your home. You get the feeling you won't ever be going back to your old life.
I hinted at this ending being way more than it seems to be at the beginning. The protagonist seems to be in big distress, and he shoots into the air, most likely not even trying to get the baby, just trying to let his stress out somehow.
Panic grips you. You raise your gun and fire blindly, somewhere, anywhere.
The seductive woman, the mother of the baby, then appears as one of the angels, most likely a hallucination, telling him he's the chosen one, the prophet, an allegory for Jesus, of course. It's pretty clear that the protagonist gets crucified when the cutscene ends. I like the details of the people with wings having clearly fake ones. The ending as a whole is shown as heavenly, unreal, and this is most likely how the protagonist felt at the time. The whole thing went by fast and it doesn't feel real. The ending could also be him in a dissociative state, as when you're in a lot of stress, everything just doesn't really feel real to you, and everything just goes by so fast, and everything, it's just great ending. Love the ending. After killing too many visitors, you are riddled with guilt and paranoia, so you try to end your life, which seems to be a pretty common thing for these endings. The other survivors, who are now portrayed as monsters with long spider arms, as the paranoia has fully taken over. They beat him up and leave him to burn. The protagonist is either too beat to actually move or just wants to die. Either way, he just lies in the grass as the sun rises.
No way to end your own suffering on your own terms. You'll burn, slowly, and there's no one left to blame.
I think this is arguably the best ending for a silly little protagonist. He jumps down a hole and meets death. There's many options to say.
I'm scared.
Which is leading me to believe that this is what the protagonist feels. But in the end, he is at peace. At the end of his monologue, he speaks how he wants to meet them again, possibly the people he let in, the egghead or death itself. But how that can wait, which is leading me to believe he's had this thought many times, but always forgot or just felt so calm and no stress that he didn't really want to go anywhere. You are in the same house as the one you see in the Visitors in Basement ending. However, this time you don't have to go through pain to see it. You don't have to die in pain, you die calmly. Genuinely a phenomenal ending. And I'm not even ashamed to say that I cried to this ending. The very clear allegory of suicide, the music, the whole monologue. As someone who struggled with the same thoughts, and even more, this is how I imagined death at my worst. Calm. I was scared of death since childhood, but at my worst, I felt at peace with dying. I tried to do something stupid, and I hoped I would end up at a place like this. This ending is very intimate for me, and I love the protagonist so much because of how much he reminds me of me. I genuinely wish I could just give this guy a hug. Holy. It's bittersweet, the fact that that ending was really the best outcome for a protagonist, that he wouldn't feel at peace, he wouldn't feel calm until he did it. Is most likely a trauma response, constantly on edge when something good is happening because your brain is used to things going bad. Oh, protagonist, you will be forever at peace now. And this was all for the video. Thank you so much for watching again. I love the protagonist, and I love No I'm Not a Human. I have been a fan for a very long time, well, definitely since the demo came out. And this game just, oh my god, it's so phenomenal, and thank you so much for watching to the end, and I wish you the best. Thank you again, Isak, for voice acting and making the thumbnail for this video. You will be featured in more videos. Thank you, dude. And yeah, that's all. Goodbye.